They say heartbreak is like a splinter. Small, sharp, and easily ignored until it festers under your skin. That morning, Sarah discovered hers had turned into a full-blown infection. She spilled coffee over her freshly ironed blouse as she tried to navigate through the open-plan office, glaring at her reflection in the stainless steel elevator doors. Divorce papers sat on her kitchen counter, a smug reminder that she was officially single, but somehow still feeling Marietto loneliness. She had always imagined life after her divorce differently. Not like this. Staring at the city skyline, her heart quietly ticking with a dull ache, while every cheerful coworker around her seemed to be living inside a different story. But as she entered the office, the universe, or maybe just had its own plans. "Morning, Sarah," chirped a voice that made her heart misbehave like a teenager's first crush. She looked up. And there she was, Emily. Emily, with her effortless hair that caught sunlight like strands of molten gold. The kind of smile that could turn your chest into a cage of warmth and panic simultaneously. She was new, quiet in meetings but sharp with wit, often catching Sarah staring without even knowing it. Sarah immediately regretted the sideways glance that probably made her look like a haunted raccoon, but Emily just smiled genuinely, unassumingly. It wasn't the first time Sarah felt this flutter. Last week, during a team presentation, Emily had leaned over to whisper a comment about Sarah's meticulous slides, and Sarah had nearly choked on her own breath. Her body had betrayed her with goosebumps that weren't entirely related to the office air conditioning. Now seeing her again, leaning casually against the edge of the coffee bar, Emily radiated a calm confidence that both intimidated and seduced Sarah. She was striking but approachable, a dangerous combination that Sarah knew all too well could make someone fall in love without realizing it. The day dragged, as days do when your brain refuses to let go of a single thought. Sarah caught herself stealing glances at Emily during meetings, noting the way she twirled a pen absent-mindedly, or the soft laugh that never failed to make the office fluorescent lights seem warmer. Every interaction felt like a spark, small but potent enough to light a forest if ignored. By lunch, Sarah found herself following Emily to the small rooftop garden that overlooked the streets below. The city roared under their feet, oblivious to the fragile hearts trying to navigate their own private chaos. "I come up here when I need to think," Emily said, her voice low but steady, carrying a hint of amusement. "Or escape the spreadsheet apocalypse." Sarah smiled, though her lips trembled slightly. "Spreadsheet apocalypse. I feel that on a spiritual level." They laughed together, the kind of laughter that lingers, a rare comfort that makes you forget the world exists outside the bubble of that moment. Emily's hand brushed Sarah's accidentally, or maybe not, and Sarah felt her pulse spike. She wanted to pull away but found herself holding her position, captivated. There was an honesty in Emily's presence, a lack of pretense that made Sarah ache with the desire to be known, truly known, again. Sarah's past had been a labyrinth of disappointment and heartbreak. Her ex-husband, once the love of her life, had unraveled over the years into someone she barely recognized. The divorce had been necessary, inevitable, but it left a scar deeper than she cared to admit. Now with Emily, the wound throbbed in a different way, a hopeful, dangerous pulse that whispered of possibility. As weeks passed, their interactions multiplied: small smiles in the elevator, lingering looks in the kitchen, collaborative moments on projects that somehow stretched beyond professionalism. Sarah noticed every detail. The gentle crease at the corner of Emily's eyes when she laughed, the soft cadence of her voice when she explained a new task, the way her fingers hovered over the keyboard when nervous. Every quirk, every imperfection, only drew Sarah in further. One rainy afternoon, Sarah stayed late to finish a report, the office empty except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional drip from the window. Emily appeared at her desk, holding 2 steaming mugs of coffee. "You looked like you could use this," Emily said softly, setting one in front of her. Their fingers brushed again and Sarah's breath hitched. "Thanks," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the rain tapping the window. "I didn't realize how long I'd been here." Emily sat opposite her, a comfortable silence enveloping them. And then something fragile and tender happened. A conversation that didn't need words, a connection that transcended the awkwardness of first impressions. Emily's eyes softened as she watched Sarah sip the coffee, and Sarah felt herself unravel in the safest possible way. "You know," Emily began, a faint smile tugging at her lips, "you're not as scary as you seem at first." Sarah laughed nervously, shaking her head. I get that a lot. No, Emily insisted, leaning forward slightly. I mean, there's this depth to you. Like you've lived and survived, and it's beautiful, not bitter. Sarah felt her chest tighten. She wanted to tell Emily everything about the divorce, the loneliness, the fear that love would never find her again. But instead she just nodded, grateful for the words that hinted at understanding. It was a turning point, subtle but seismic. Sarah realized that she had been hiding from the possibility of love, not just any love, but this love right in front of her. The connection with Emily was different. It was electric yet gentle, thrilling yet grounding. It was the kind of love she had thought she'd never deserve. Days turned into weeks, and the boundary between professional and personal blurred. Coffee breaks became long conversations. Meetings ended with walks through the city streets, sharing stories and laughter. Every moment with Emily chipped away at the walls Sarah had built around her heart. One evening, walking home together under the golden glow of streetlights, Emily reached for Sarah's hand. Their fingers entwined naturally, as if they had been meant to fit together all along. Sarah's heart raced, a mix of fear and exhilaration. Sarah, Emily whispered, hesitating only for a second before her voice steadied. I don't know where this will go, but I think I'm falling for you. The words, simple yet profound, struck Sarah with a force she hadn't expected. She had imagined this moment countless times, in quiet fantasies, but reality was so much more vivid, more terrifying, more beautiful. I think I've already fallen, Sarah admitted, her voice trembling but resolute. The weight of her past seemed to lift slightly, replaced by the fragile promise of something new, something real. And in that instant, under the gentle hum of the city night, two women found a connection that neither had anticipated but both had been silently yearning for, a beginning born from the wreckage of past heartbreak, carrying the unspoken promise of love, trust, and perhaps happiness. The weeks that followed felt like walking through a dream where reality and desire blurred into a soft haze. Sarah found herself inventing excuses to linger in the office, hoping to catch Emily's quiet glance across the room, hoping to share a fleeting moment without the world noticing. There was something intoxicating about the subtlety of their connect. A brush of hands passing a document, a shared joke in the elevator, the way Emily's laughter made the fluorescent office lights feel like sunlight. One Thursday, the air smelled faintly of rain and printer ink. Sarah was hunched over her laptop, her thoughts scattered between figures on a spreadsheet, and the memory of Emily leaning in to explain a small correction just an hour ago. Her chest tightened at the recollection. How could someone she barely knew feel like the center of her universe? Emily appeared without knocking. Still buried in numbers? She asked, her voice playful but soft. Sarah looked up and caught that gentle, warm smile again, the one that made all her carefully guarded walls tremble. I guess I am, Sarah admitted, closing her laptop reluctantly. But I was almost done. Emily leaned on the edge of Sarah's desk, casually but in a way that made Sarah forget to breathe for a moment. I thought maybe we could take a break. You know, escape the apocalypse. The word escape hung in the air, a double meaning Sarah could not ignore. She closed her laptop completely, feeling a flutter of anticipation. Okay, she said, standing. They wandered through the streets of the city, rain-dappled and shimmering in the afternoon light, sharing small stories, each word drawing them closer. Sarah felt a nervous thrill in every accidental brush of their shoulders, every laugh shared over mundane observations about the city. She realized that being near Emily was no longer just comforting. It was necessary. The thought made her both excited and terrified. Emily stopped at a small coffee shop tucked between two larger buildings, the kind of place that smelled like cinnamon and old books. My favorite, she said, smiling as she held the door open. The warmth of the interior was a sharp contrast to the chill outside, and Sarah felt herself relaxing in Emily's presence in a way she hadn't known she could. They ordered coffee and found a quiet corner, tucked beneath a shelf of novels. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, stories of childhood, the small heartbreaks that shaped them, the little victories that kept them moving forward. Emily's eyes sparkled with curiosity, and Sarah realized that in all the years of her life, no one had ever truly listened to her the way Emily did. Not with such warmth, such unguarded interest, such patience. At one point, Emily reached across the table to tuck a stray lock of hair behind Sarah's ear. Her fingers brushed against Sarah's cheek, and a shiver ran down Sarah's spine. She wanted to lean in to close the gap between them, but her own fears whispered warnings. She had been hurt before. She had learned the painful way that love could betray you. Yet in Emily's gaze she found something different, a quiet sincerity, a gentle insistence that maybe, just maybe, love could be safe again. Do you ever feel like life is moving too fast? Sarah asked, her voice low, almost a whisper. Emily tilted her head thoughtfully. All the time, she admitted. But sometimes you just have to grab onto the moments that feel real. That's how you survive. Sarah looked down at their hands, still brushing against each other on the table, and felt a rush of courage. Then, maybe this moment is real, she murmured. Emily's smile softened, a slow, tender smile that seemed to reach straight into Sarah's chest. I think it is, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. And then before Sarah could second guess, Emily leaned forward, and their lips met in a gentle, searching kiss, soft but full of unspoken promises. The world seemed to fall away. The chatter of the cafe, the rustle of pages from the books around them, the drizzle against the windows all faded into the background. Sarah felt as if she had been waiting for this kiss her entire life without knowing it. Emily's hands cupped her face, her touch light yet grounding, and Sarah melted into the moment, letting herself feel, letting herself hope. Afterward they sat in silence, foreheads touching, hearts beating in tandem. I didn't expect this, Sarah confessed, a nervous laugh escaping her lips. But I think I've been hoping for it. Emily chuckled softly, tucking a strand of hair behind Sarah's ear again. Sometimes the best things are the ones you never saw coming, she said. Over the next few weeks their relationship deepened, though it was far from simple. Office dynamics required discretion, and Sarah often found herself caught between the desire to shout her happiness to the world and the reality of keeping their bond private. Each stolen glance, each touch under the table, carried a thrill that was both exhilarating and terrifying. But love, Sarah realized, wasn't just about thrill. It was about patience, trust, and vulnerability. And Emily was teaching her that, slowly, gently, with every word, every laugh, every shared silence. One evening, after a long day of back-to-back meetings, Emily invited Sarah to her apartment. The space was small but cozy, filled with plants and soft lighting, a reflection of Emily's personality, warm, inviting, alive. They cooked dinner together, laughter echoing off the walls, a sense of ease settling between them that Sarah had not known she could feel again. As they sat across from each other, sharing a simple meal of pasta and salad, Sarah felt a profound sense of gratitude. She reached across the table, brushing her fingers against Emily's. I never thought I'd feel this way again, she said quietly. Emily's eyes softened, and she reached for Sarah's hand, entwining their fingers. Neither did I, she admitted. But I'm glad we did. They talked late into the night, sharing dreams, fears, and quiet confessions. Emily spoke of her past relationships, the disappointments and lessons learned, and Sarah shared her story, her divorce, the heartbreak, the loneliness that had become almost a companion. Each revelation drew them closer, weaving a tapestry of trust and intimacy that felt sacred. The physical closeness followed naturally, but it was the emotional connection that left Sarah breathless. When Emily rested her head on Sarah's shoulder, when their hands found each other in the dark, Sarah felt a sense of belonging she had thought she'd lost forever. Yet, despite the happiness blooming between them, Sarah's past was never far behind. She struggled with moments of doubt, wondering if she was moving too fast, if the wounds of her past would shadow the promise of the future. Emily sensed this, not with words but with understanding, offering comfort and patience, allowing Sarah to navigate her fears at her own pace. One rainy Saturday they walked hand in hand through a quiet park, the city misting around them. Emily paused at a small bench, turning to face Sarah. I know this hasn't been easy for you, she said softly. But I want you to know, I'm here. For every step, for every moment, for everything. Tears pricked at Sarah's eyes, a mix of relief and emotion. She pulled Emily into a tight embrace, feeling the warmth of her body, the steady heartbeat against her chest. I want this, she whispered. I want us. Emily smiled against her hair, a small laugh escaping her lips. Then we'll figure it out together. And for the first time in a long time Sarah believed it. The ache of her past heartbreak had softened, replaced by the gentle pulse of hope. With Emily by her side, she began to imagine a future filled with laughter, love, and quiet moments of intimacy that were entirely their own. The weeks turned into months, each day a delicate dance of closeness and discovery. They navigated the complexities of work, friends, and the remnants of past relationships, but their bond remained resilient, built on a foundation of honesty, patience, and mutual care. One evening, as the sun set over the city skyline, painting the streets in hues of gold and rose, Emily and Sarah stood on the rooftop of their office building, hands entwined, hearts aligned. "You've changed my world," Emily said softly, leaning into Sarah. "And you've changed mine," Sarah replied, her voice steady, filled with certainty for the first time in years. They kissed, a long, tender kiss that carried all the weight of their journey, the heartbreak, the hope, the laughter, and the quiet moments that had brought them here. The city stretched out below them, vast and bustling, but in that moment, it felt as if the world had shrunk to just the two of them. Sarah realized that love didn't always arrive on time, or in the expected form. Sometimes it came softly, quietly, through small gestures, shared moments, and unexpected connections. And sometimes it arrived in the form of a woman who made her heart race and her soul feel at home. As they watched the city lights flicker on, Emily resting her head against Sarah's shoulder, Sarah allowed herself to believe in love again, not the kind dictated by expectations or past failures, but a love born of choice, of trust, and of courage. In the end, Sarah discovered that heartbreak was not the end, it was a beginning, a necessary unraveling that made space for something real, something beautiful, something enduring. And in Emily's arms, she found a love that was gentle, exhilarating, and entirely worth the wait. Theirs was not a perfect Lovino love ever is, but it was theirs. A love that carried the weight of their pasts, celebrated the present, and promised a future that, for the first time, felt unshakably bright. Months had passed since that first stolen kiss in the corner of the coffee shop. The seasons shifted, painting the city in shades of gold, gray, and finally the crisp clarity of winter. Sarah had begun to feel something she hadn't allowed herself in years: security. Not just the security of a home or a routine, but the quiet, undeniable certainty that someone was beside her, choosing her every day. Emily. It was a Friday evening when it finally hit her. They were walking through the park near their apartment building, the snow falling lightly around them, blanketing the city in soft white. Emily's hand was warm in hers, a tether that grounded her, and she realized with startling clarity that she couldn't imagine a life without Emily. "I never thought I'd feel this whole again," Sarah admitted, her voice a mix of awe and disbelief as she stopped to catch a snowflake on her tongue. Emily laughed softly, brushing snow from Sarah's hair. "Whole isn't a word I use lightly," she said, eyes glinting with the reflection of city lights. "But you've made me feel it too." Sarah smiled, feeling a swell in her chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the winter air. "I was scared, she whispered. Scared that my heart would never trust again." Emily tilted her head, her expression soft but firm. "I know. And you were brave enough to let me in anyway." They walked in silence for a while, the kind of comfortable silence that only comes after months of shared moments, of laughter and late-night confessions, of arguments resolved and insecurities soothed. When they reached the small bench at the edge of the frozen pond, Emily sat down, patting the space beside her. Sarah joined her, letting the quiet settle around them. Emily began, tracing circles on Sarah's palm with her thumb. "I've been thinking a lot about us lately." Sarah's heart fluttered. The tone of Emily's voice was playful, yet carried weight, a hint that something significant was coming. "Oh," she asked, trying to sound casual but failing spectacularly. Emily smiled, leaning closer, her eyes locked on Sarah's. "I think it's time we stop sneaking around, hiding our happiness. We've been careful, but I don't want to be careful anymore. I want everyone to know what I already know in my heart." Sarah's breath caught. "Emily, I love you," Emily said simply, clearly, without hesitation. "I've loved you for a long time, and I don't want to wait another day to say it out loud." Tears pricked Sarah's eyes, but she laughed through them, the sound catching in the cold night air. "I love you too," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "More than I thought possible." Emily pulled her into a hug, and the world melted around them. The snow fell in soft waves, the city lights reflected in the ice of the pond, and for the first time in years, Sarah felt completely, undeniably at peace. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of quiet joy and subtle celebrations. They didn't need grand gestures, small moments became sacred. Sharing breakfast on lazy Sunday mornings, holding hands as they navigated the crowded streets, falling asleep tangled together on the couch, the soft hum of the city outside their window. Every glance, every touch, every laugh reinforced the bond that had grown between them. A bond forged from trust, patience, and a shared willingness to be vulnerable. Work remained a careful dance, but Sarah found herself less concerned with appearances and more focused on savoring the moments she had with Emily. They had grown adept at finding small spaces of privacy, an extra-long coffee break, a quiet chat in a deserted conference room, the accidental brush of hands under a shared notebook. Each fleeting contact sent sparks through Sarah, reminders of how deeply she loved Emily, how completely she belonged with her. One evening, Emily suggested they take a short trip outside the city, to a cabin by a frozen lake that promised solitude and quiet. Sarah agreed immediately, sensing the subtle promise of intimacy and togetherness. The drive was filled with laughter, playful arguments over directions, and occasional quiet moments where their fingers found each other across the console. The cabin was rustic but cozy, a small hearth crackling with warmth. Emily lit a fire as Sarah unpacked, and soon they were curled together under a blanket on the worn couch, the snow falling silently outside the window. "I love this," Sarah murmured, resting her head on Emily's shoulder. "Us here like this. Feels like home." Emily kissed the top of her head, a soft, lingering gesture that made Sarah's heart flutter. "Home is wherever we're together," she replied. As the days passed, they explored the frozen woods, skated across the lake, and cooked simple meals by the fire. Every moment was infused with a quiet magic, the kind that comes from being utterly seen and accepted. Sarah realized that the life she had imagined after her divorce, empty, cautious, tentative, had been a mirage. The reality, messy and unpredictable as it was infinitely better. On the last night of their getaway, Emily led Sarah outside to the snow-covered dock. The sky was a deep indigo, stars sparkling above like scattered diamonds. Emily took both of Sarah's hands in hers, her eyes shining with emotion. "Sarah, these months with you, they've been the best of my life," Emily said softly. "I don't want this to end ever. I want to wake up next to you every morning, fight with you, laugh with you, grow old with you. Will you stay with me? Not just now, not just here, but forever." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, and she nodded, words failing her in the face of such raw honesty. She leaned forward and kissed Emily deeply, a kiss that sealed their promise, that carried the weight of their journey and the hope of all the tomorrows yet to come. "Yes," she whispered against Emily's lips. "Forever." The seasons continued to change, and so did their lives, but the core of their love remained unshakable. They moved in together, creating a space filled with laughter, love, and the small traditions that made a house a home. Friends and family slowly came to accept their relationship, and Sarah felt a quiet pride in how far they had come from stolen moments and whispered confessions to a life shared openly and fearlessly. Every day brought its own small joys. Emily making coffee just the way Sarah liked it, Sarah leaving notes for Emily to find, lazy Sunday mornings filled with warmth and conversation, quiet evenings where they simply held each other, letting the world fall away. It wasn't perfect, there were disagreements, moments of doubt, and the occasional shadow of past hurt, but the love between them was resilient, patient, and unwavering. One spring morning, as the cherry blossoms bloomed outside their apartment window, Sarah woke to find Emily already awake, sitting by the window with a cup of tea. Emily looked up and smiled, that soft, familiar smile that made Sarah's heart ache with affection. "Morning," Emily said, her voice gentle. "Sleep well." "Better than I have in years," Sarah replied, curling up beside her. "Because of you." Emily leaned in, brushing a kiss across Sarah's forehead. "Because of us," she corrected softly. "Always us." Sarah smiled, closing her eyes, letting herself bask in the warmth of the moment. It was a simple truth. Life could be messy, unpredictable, and even painful, but love, real, patient, and deeply felt love, made it all worthwhile. With Emily by her side, Sarah knew she had found a home for her heart, a sanctuary for her soul, and a partner with whom she could face anything. The journey had been long, and there had been heartbreak along the way, but Sarah realized that every tear, every lonely night, and every fear she had faced had led her to this point. And in Emily's arms, with their lives entwined, she finally understood the meaning of joy, trust, and the quiet, enduring beauty of being loved completely. As the sun rose, casting a warm glow across the apartment, Sarah held Emily close, feeling the steady beat of her heart against her own. For the first time in a long time, there was no fear, no hesitation, no lingering shadows of the past. Only the promise of tomorrow filled with love, laughter, and the unshakable certainty that they were truly meant to be together. And in that simple, perfect moment, Sarah knew she was home. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.